can we start this event? Intan?
Yes, there are already 36 participants join with us. It's or we can wait for 1 minute more.
Okay, we can wait in 1 minute more to
waiting for for more participants join.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pak.
Thank you. And for all participants, I want to say welcome to join our international lecture series today. And I will tell you some information, little detailed information about our participant today. Actually, we have I don't know, 3 types of student in our participant today in Indonesia. We have some bachelor student here and master student, and also maybe some doctoral student, I think. But we separate our event today in the hybrid activity. So you can see in our camera, we have some participant join in our theater room, and also we have some participant join from virtual room today. And also we have several lecturer here from Urban and Regional Planning, Universiti Diponegoro. Let me see in our list of participants. Oh, we have our host lecture in the previously series, Bu Rina Kurniati here. Good morning, Bu Rina. She has been the host lecture in the, I don't know, in some topic about the heritage and preserve activity.
Good morning, Pak Grandy.
Yeah, good morning. And also we have Prof Sunarti from
morning.
good morning, Prof Narti. And also our I don't know, our head of department, Prof Wiwi. I think she's have another meeting today, but we have Pak Yudi Basuki. Good morning, Pak Yudi.
Hello everyone, enjoy your coffee at the meeting, yeah. There is also Damian. Hello Damian. We meet again. Okay, thank you, Pak Grandy.
Good morning, Pak Yudi. And I want to notice our participant in virtual room to change their name. You can name your username with participant _ your name and your affiliation or institution, so we can invited you in the discussion session after the presentations.
Thank you, Pak Grandy.
Okay,
Maybe
Intan, I think we can start our
this
today.
session. Okay, thank you, Pak. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me to introduce myself first. My name is Grandy Loranessa Wungo, one of the member of this Urban and Regional Planning as a lecturer in Urban and Regional Planning in Diponegoro University. And I wanna say thank you first for Bu Landung, Bu Santi Paula Dewi, Mbak Intan, and Mas Imam has been arranged this event today. And unfortunately, our head of department, Prof Wiwi, cannot be in virtual or in our theater room today because she have another meeting today. But we have our in the next couple hours we have our chairman of International Lecture Series, Prof Iwan. He will deliver or convey some information and some closing remark in our discussion today. Okay, without more further, I will say welcome to all of our participants today that join in our international lecture series with the main topic of sustainable urban design. And also we have our 2 main speaker or our 2 host lecture and our invited lecture. First, I wanna we'll read the curriculum vitae from Prof Shuhana. Prof Shuhana Shamsuddin is president of Malaysian Urban Design Association. We call it Pareka Bandar. And also she have more than 30 years experience of teaching urban design to the architect and urban planning student. And I think it's a long, quiet experience. You can see about the C education and also the experience as an urban consultant, and also some project as a project leader and a lecturer and also an assistant lecturer in UTM. The research interests extensively engage with the urban design, because we know about in the beginning of this curriculum vitae. And also some publication, especially in the urban design context in the list of the curriculum vitae. It's quite interesting experience, and I can wait to hear your share knowledge to us, so we can learn some things about in our neighbor country in Malaysia. Okay, in the and our next host lecture, Bu Dr. Retno Widjajanti. Bu Dr. Retno Widjajanti is an associate professor at the Department of Urban Regional Planning, and I have education in the architect Diponegoro University Indonesia with a thesis of hotel wisata pantai di Karita, for example. And the research interest mostly is about the urban public space, which is related with Prof. Shuhana also, but the specific topic is about third vendor activity in the urban area. And then it's so many publication here, topic related with the street vendor activity, but mostly in Semarang city. And I think she will share the experience about the street vendor is in Semarang too. And also some research experience that you can see in the list of this screen. And lastly is about the network. She also have worked together with some institution like Indonesian Planning Association, and recently it's collaboration with IARCI, or we call it Indonesian Association of Urban Design. Okay, thank you. And okay, now we will start, and I will invite Prof. Shuhana, and we will help you to share your presentation. So I will read some rules for the presentation. We will maximal 30 minutes for your presentation, each of you. And in the next session, we will use 25 minutes for discussion and also some question and answer. Okay, Prof. Shuhana, are you ready? Okay, the time is yours, Prof. Shuhana.
Is everybody can see the screen?
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm muted.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to Undip for inviting me to this. I think it's the second time I'm giving this public lecture to this university, and it is interesting that we are doing now on a hybrid basis. Wish I could be over there, but it will be a lot of things to arrange if I were to travel there physically. Anyway, the topic that I'll be delivering today is on the urban public spaces of the ordinary and not so ordinary towns and cities in Malaysia. I'll just be giving an overview because this is not really my special interest or but my special area, because my focus is more on the identity and sense of place, but part of the elements that contributed to the identity and sense of place of cities are the public spaces. Okay, before I discuss, well, just give an overview of what's happening in Malaysia as far as urban public spaces are concerned, let's just recap on the theories of urban spaces that is actually developed by the Western scholars just to become something like a benchmark to see the state of the condition of our urban spaces in Malaysia as compared to what the theories that has been written by the Western scholars. Okay, first slide, please. To look into the definition, we'll be looking at public spaces. When you talk about spaces, spaces is a very important component of the city. In fact, if you look at Prof. Keir's definition of urban space, he looked into streets and squares as being urban space, because the urban space is actually like the outdoor room in a city. It encompasses all the streets, squares, and other rights of way. But mind you, in Malaysia, we don't really have such thing as squares, because in the real sense of the word, because the term squares is actually developed in Europe from the piazza in Italy. But we have some characteristics of a square, although the characteristic is not as well defined as the squares that we have in Europe. And the term public spaces meant that there is public access to those spaces, because there are some spaces which have limited access only to the owners or the private individuals. And it also includes the interfaces with the key internal and external and private spaces to which the public normally has free access. So that is the definition given by Matthew Kamona and his co-authors. Next. So when you look at public space, because we can have public spaces in suburbans or even in rural areas. So my focus will be looking into the urban public spaces, which are actually the, like I said just now, most formal public urban spaces are located in the cities, and each public urban spaces has its own spatial, historic, environmental, social, and economic features. And it is a key element of the individual and social well-being, because it is belongs to the community. And sometimes, or most of the time, the urban public spaces is a symbol of the values, is a symbol of the progress and civilization of the society, because the public spaces is one of the elements that is most visible and distinctive in the city. And the urban community usually recognizes themselves in the public spaces and pursue the improvement of their spatial quality. Next. Now, the typology of urban public spaces can be categorized into four. It is, when we meant by the typology, it's about the types, the types of the urban public spaces that's available. And it is categorized by means of control, who actually control the space. So it can be a secure public space or a themed public space. So you don't necessarily have to have a very formal urban space, but to be called a urban public space. But the means of control is one of the category used to define the urban public space. Next. And then we also look into urban public space in the way the users engage with the space, to categorize it as urban space. So it can be everyday places or places of meanings. That means people have attachment and bondings to it. Then social environments, spaces where social activities are being engaged. And then places of retreat. It's a place where people go to relax and to calm themselves. And also there are public spaces which are negative spaces, not really used for the function that is intended. Next. And Zucker, actually one of very prominent author in urban design books, defined urban public space by the physical form. So because there is this discussion whether all spaces in the cities are public space, or whether including the spaces between buildings, or is public space has to be in the form of a well-defined shape and form. According to Zucker, there are about 6 types of public space in terms of form that can be defined as an urban public space from the squares, and mostly, like I said just now, because squares originate from Europe, so mostly they look at the types of squares based on the shape and form. Next. And by function, I think this is really understood, because how you use the space is also determining its character. So the car defined public spaces by the function it plays. For example, you can categorize public parks, squares and plazas, memorials, markets, streets, playgrounds. Next. As well as by the function in terms of its community open spaces is also categorized as an urban public space, greenways and parkways, atrium, indoor market spaces, found spaces, everyday spaces, and the waterfront. Okay, next. Now, because just if you look at the definition by other scholars just now, we can tell that public urban spaces doesn't really have to be a space that is well defined and of a certain shape, except for Zucker category. But Korea, in a way, define urban space differently, because according to Korea, to be categorized as an urban space, it has to have a sense of enclosure. So this theory is developed based on the studies of the types of squares that they have in Europe, UK included, where the squares are really geometrically bounded by a variety of elevation, and they are normally functioning like a wall surrounding a void, and the buildings that surrounds it, in a way frame and give the sense of enclosure to the particular space. So according to Korea, you must have that sense of enclosure characteristics in order to call it as an urban space. So you can see there is a slight different point of view here. Next. And Korea also look at urban space in being the key elements being the streets and the squares. In a way, this is consistent or incongruence with Lynch's theory of image of the city, where he also discovered that the paths, where street is actually an example of paths, and the nodes, where an urban space is actually an example of nodes, are important elements that creates imageability and influence the way people structure the cities in their mind. So because of this, the importance of designing street and squares in a city will actually influence the appearance of the city and thus give it its identity and sense of place. People normally identify and can relate more to cities that have a very strong design of the streets and the squares. Next. So for those of you who have gone through the urban design postgraduate courses, you're bound to be reading about Korea's typology of the concept of urban spaces, where he actually studied and documented the various types of urban spaces available, and each of the spaces is actually influenced by the character of the buildings surrounding this space. Next. I have to go very fast here because 30 minutes is not that long. Okay, next. One of the prominent and most contemporary urban designers is Jan Gehl. I think everybody must heard about him. He's a Danish architect, and Gehl being who came from Denmark, and Denmark, especially Copenhagen, is well known for its pedestrian streets. And among the cities that is actually the first in the world to really go into pedestrian streets. So pedestrian streets is one of the most popular types of public space, and it's also influencing many cities all over the world to turn their streets into pedestrian streets, to give the freedom for the pedestrians to enjoy the streets as well as to enjoy the spaces provided for their activities. Mind you, there is a difference between streets and roads, because the two, even though they have one common feature, which is a linearity, and as well as being a mode of a channel of movement, But the streets is more aligned to urban design in the sense that the streets become settings for activity, as well as allow the public to engage in the activities and other form of social interaction whilst using the street for other purposes. But the roads are merely for transportation mode, for means of communication. So if you look at the way cities give priority, either if they give priority to the pedestrians, then you can see more streets in the city. But if they give more priority to the cars, then you can see more roads in the city. That is my observation. Next. So what is the value of the urban public spaces? So you can see that there are four, you can divide the public spaces into four components. One from the economic perspective, because it helps to give positive impact on the property prices once you have an urban public space, especially if they are well designed. It's good for businesses, and it raises the land value and levels of investment and helps to boost the regional economic performance. So public space is not just meant for a place for people to gather, but they also have some economic relevance to a city. Now, apart from economic, then the social value of the urban public space is actually one of the most well understood by people, because it is an arena for public life. Without the space, there will be no life in a city. It's a meeting place for different social groups, and it's a space for different to display the symbols and images of the society, and it's a part of the communication system between urban activities. A lot can be learned about the society, civilization, their value system, by the way they design their public space. The other aspect is on the health, because the public space is actually giving opportunities for the urban residents to encourage to engage in activities that will contribute to better health and influence a longer life. As a result of that, it provides space for informal and formal sports and games. It reduces stress and enhances mental health due to the therapeutic and the cooling effects to the people as a result of just being in a space with natural environment involved. And finally is the environment. Now, by having public space, the value is such that we can encourage walkability. I mean, it's very important because it's related to health. The more people walk in the city, the healthier they will be. The healthier the people are, the more positive they can contribute to the society and environment. So it's like a domino effect. So the public space in itself, has so many contributing factors to encourage better quality of life. And it's also improving the air quality, because when you have public spaces, then you will reduce the heat island effects, pollution and water runoff, and it creates opportunities for urban wildlife to flourish when you have urban spaces in the city. Next. Now, going back to Copenhagen just now, like I said, when most cities in the past were still car-oriented, you see, Copenhagen has already started to develop its food streets in the past, and now they are going into designing the bicycle city. So, if you look, Copenhagen being a very in a small country like Denmark, they are very serious about sustainability of cities, and they really do the not just talk, they do walk the talk, and they have now devoted much of their city center to be converted to traffic-free city space for the pedestrians. So only 80% of the movement to the city center is foot street. Mind you, Copenhagen is located in Scandinavia, which is quite cold in winter, and yet they are so brave enough, to go for a very walkable city. To encourage a city that is sustainable in a sense of not polluting the environment with the vehicles. Next. So from that aspect, so there is a growing trend now in creating more public spaces for the pedestrians worldwide. So you can see more and more streets are being converted into public spaces. One that I have visited, which is quite popular, is the Times Square in New York. From a very busy street with lots of cars, they have actually closed part of the street and turned it into a public space with people, can sit around and mingle themselves on the streets. And now it's becoming one of the attraction in New York. Next. Yes, another thing is the Herald Square in New York. You can see the transformation of cars, roads. If you look at the left, that's a road, okay. And on the right, when you decided to create a public space out of the roads, then it becomes a street. So it's the same location, but it's just the attitude has changed, and the perception towards the space has changed. From one giving the space to the cars, the other one is giving the space back to the people. So when you talk about sustainable development, it's not about the objects or the plans. It's about the mindset and your attitude, your behavior. Once you decided to do away with cars and then to give more priority to the present, you can easily do it on the same location. Next. So the characteristics of great public space will include: it will promote human contact and social activities. It becomes safe, welcoming, and accommodating for all users. And it has to design. You have to design, and you have to have architecture features that are visually interesting. You will know why I emphasize on this when I talk about Malaysia case. So you can promote community involvement and reflects the local culture or history, and relates well to bordering users. Has to be well maintained, has a unique or special character. Then only you will have a great public space. Otherwise, it will just become a void in the city. Next. So there's a long list of the elements that actually comprises the public space, from buildings, infrastructures, landscape, uses. So it will depend, on the priority of how you want the spaces to be used. That will result in how the space will be transformed and the activities that is introduced to liven up the space. Next. So there is a 5 dimensions of public space. We'll have to include these qualities. First, it has to be inclusiveness, which is actually an element of sustainable development. No one is left behind. You don't want a public urban space that is not accessible, because that means that people who are disadvantaged in terms of mobility will be left out. And you want to have meaningful activities in order to increase the quality of the space, because meaningful activities means activities that is being designed, the spaces that we designed to support the particular activities. Sometimes there's a mismatch, between the design of the space and the activities, and you will find that the space will not be used as the way it is intended. So this is what we can call like a negative space. And comfort. Comfort is very important, and comfort is also related to your climate. You don't design your public space for somebody else's climate. Okay, you must design it for your own climate, because that only then you will give you comfort. Because these climatic issues in design is not just something that you choose to do. You have to do it, or in order to make the space functional. And then there is the element of safety. When you talk about dimensions of public spaces, if the spaces are not safe, then you will end up the space become negative, and it will be occupied by people who will actually give a social stigma to the space. And then finally, it's pleasurability. Now, pleasurability is related to aesthetic. You have to design the space so that it is aesthetically pleasing, people enjoy sitting, and because human nature, everybody loves to see beautiful places, Although beautiful is subjective, but it is one common feature of beautiful is that it is something contradicting to an ugly space. Next. And then you can see that spaces have context. The different spaces will be designed according to the context. For example, in the land use category, you have the residential area spaces. In the town city center, local center, retail park, every different land uses can have their own public space, and also relate to the relative urbanity, whether it's a high density, an urban area, or it's a relatively sensitive, such as conservation area, regeneration area, or ecologically sensitive area, will have a different types of space. The socioeconomic context in terms of high income, medium income, this is really expected, because you wouldn't expect a badly designed space in a high income area, because normally people will pay more attention to this kind of area, which is actually not, which is again social equality, but this is actually the reality. And then they have the specialist category where you have the waterfront, public space, or is a derelict site, and so forth. So okay, next I will give you an overview of the urban public spaces in Malaysia. I think I have about 10 minutes left. What I've been saying here is just why I'm doing an overview, because for your information, Malaysia is relatively a new country. I mean, the history is not that far back as compared to the European cities, and most cities in Malaysia were developed in the late 1800s, and only cities like Malacca was built around 1411. Even then, there's not much left of what the Portuguese have built in the past, because it's been demolished. And only in the 1511, when the Dutch came over, they built the part of the city center that we can see today, which is now listed under the World Heritage Sites. So Malacca is not an ordinary city. That's why when I put this title, public spaces in the ordinary and not so ordinary city, is I can just say public spaces in Malaysia, but I just wanted to highlight that we have the ordinary cities and the not so ordinary cities, and we can see that whether the public spaces different between these two types of cities, or they're just mainly the same. So, okay, going back to that, so our public spaces is not a key element of the cities in Malaysia, because of like I said, they were built during the times of the Industrial Revolution, and in a period where there is already the invention of the automobile. So the Malaysian cities that was built even during the British occupation has already started to accommodate the land-based transportation, because in the past, before the land-based transportation, most cities in Malaysia has the water bodies as their main channel of communication. So almost a majority of cities in Malaysia are water-based. Either they're built by the river, at the estuaries, or by the sea. So where the river becomes the main, where the cities were addressing and fronting the water. But after pre-war, when the cars has been brought into the country, slowly roads were built, and then the rivers, the water bodies become the backyards. So the city starts to front the road and backing the river, and this affects the way we design our public spaces. But traditionally, there are three types of urban spaces, namely the padang, the waterfront, and the 5 feet walkways, which are elements that were inherited from the British colonial rules before the country gained independence in 1937. And during that time, the mosque, because Islam has arrived even before the Portuguese came to Malaysia. So the mosque, the market, and the jetty are the three important elements that have relationship with the waterfront during the era of the water-based transportation, and most public spaces revolve around these three elements and the water bodies. Now, the nation independence began with buildings mainly to accommodate land-based transportation. And another problem at that time is to service the city. They have to build utility lines for electric power supply, water supply, and they normally use the river to become the place where all the utility lines were to be laid down to service the city, and this affect the quality of the urban space along the water bodies. So instead of we have a riverfront, a nice riverfront, and so what we call the riverfront becomes like a monsoon drain where all the sewers would discharge into the river, as well as a place where all the utility lines are being laid there. So because of this, I think that's the reason why we don't have much urban spaces that we can really be proud of in terms of its design as compared to the cities in Europe, which have a long tradition of designing urban public spaces from the medieval period, and the glory period of the Renaissance, where most of the beautiful squares were designed, and until now they still keep their heritage urban spaces. But in Malaysia, we don't have that traditions. So the art of building cities have been replaced by a technocrat approach towards town planning and city building in Malaysia. So everything will be done according to land survey. The lots, the size of the lots in the city becomes the factor to determine the urban form. The grid iron system was introduced to facilitate easy building of the city's roads to accommodate for the cars. And like I said, it's now the rivers and the seas become a major face a decline with the development backing them and used for infrastructure and utilities. Next. So this historical factor actually determine the types of public spaces that we have in Malaysia. But in view of that, we still have, I can still see the typology of urban public spaces in Malaysia as from having of this category, which is we have the Padang. Because the Padang is a legacy of the British planning, because when they built the cities, the colonial cities, they will have the Padang, a green turf open space at the center, which is actually surrounded by the key civic buildings. And this Padang were mostly used for recreation. After work, they will go play cricket and the space. So it become a major node as well as for recreation. And then there is the park. The park is also something that we inherit from the British planning, because some of green spaces in the cities were conserved, and then all the vegetations, some species were brought over from outside to be planted here in the parks. And then we have this dataran. Now the dataran is not like a square. It's also not like a padang, because the difference between dataran and padang is the padang is lawn, it's grass. Dataran is a hard surface, but it's not enclosed like a square. So I don't know how to describe the character of padang, but then it's neither dataran is neither a padang nor a square. And sometimes they converted the padang into a dataran by paving it, pave the part where the grass was planted. And then next we have the medan. Now medan is I think the term medan is inherited from Iran. The medan in Iran, which is but in Iran they have squares in Iran, but the difference between medan and dataran is just in terms of scale. It's a smaller version of the dataran, semi-enclosed space, slightly smaller. And then we have the laman, which is the space that is fronting or becoming a setting for public buildings, civic buildings. It is a public spaces, but normally they're not used by people because to respect that it's a setting for the public buildings. And then one of the typology of public spaces that we have, which is quite unique to Malaysia and also to cities in Southeast Asia, is the kaki lima, the 5-foot walkways. Now, this is actually a building typology which require the owner to surrender part of the front of their building to become an arcaded walkway to allow pedestrians to walk through. And it's also part of the building bylaw requirement at that time after the Great Fire in Kuala Lumpur in late 1800. So due to that, it becomes an interesting public space because it's a space that is part of building, which is an interior, but exposed to the interior because you can see the people walking around street as you walk through the 5-foot walkways. I think you also have the kaki lima here in Indonesia, I think. And then we have the streets and boulevards. Now, boulevards is not a typical characteristics of Malaysian streets. We have streets because boulevards are streets with street planting, very formal kind of street planting. And for the streets, we have sidewalks constructed on both sides to allow pedestrian movement. And they are different than roads. The roads, like I said just now, they are just for movement of cars. And then there's a pedestrian mall. There's a growing trend of having pedestrian mall, which is a pedestrian street linked to shopping complexes or shopping malls. And promenade or esplanade along the waterfront in the city center, and finally the alleys, which is the back lanes. There's a current trend in Malaysia to actually tidy up the back lanes and to paint mural along the back lane, and as well as some places they even have a urban community gardens along the back lanes to make sure the back lanes are very active with activities and to deter any kind of undesirable activities. Next. Now, the ordinary town. Okay, what do you mean by ordinary town? There are a lot of scholars actually written about the ordinary town, and actually, we are going to involved in one of research with the French organization about the study of ordinary towns in Asia, Southeast Asia, I think. So when talk about ordinary town, this is just a normal town which grows, organically from its original human settlement, and most of the time not properly designed. They're not. There's no formal master plan. It's just more like a vernacular approach to designing spaces where it's been done to accommodate the needs of the ordinary people. Next. And it doesn't result of regular procedures of urban shaping or urban planning. Next. So urban spaces of the ordinary towns, they're more, like I said, very continuous and fluid transformation, but they are fundamental in the construction of the local identities for the place. Next. So one city which have is categorized an ordinary town because it's one of the service centers in Perak. But the unique thing about the city, I think, is probably the only city in Malaysia which has a very formal public space at the center of the town with a leaning tower becoming the jewel of the crown in that space. So you can feel the size of the space as you walk. And if you look at the way that the space has been designed, it's more appropriate for a Mediterranean climate because it's so hot if you try to be in that space. But the impact is very strong if when you are in that space because of the huge size of the space at the center. So although it's an ordinary town, it has a very unique space. But the only weaknesses I notice is the mediocrity of the architecture of the building surrounding the space, especially the one built post-independence, because there are some interesting heritage buildings, which is actually part of the original buildings that surrounded the area. But the more recent addition to the building that surround the space is horrendous, actually. Very ugly, and in a way, it's really not doing justice to the sheer character of this space. Next. Next, please. Okay. But if you look at the ordinary towns, this is quite a typical site, because most of the time the ordinary towns is just a service center. It's just a place where you have the shops, the offices, the schools, and so forth. There's no such thing as public space. It's just a car, cars. The public space, it's just the roads and the cars, given priority to that. And even if there is a sidewalk, it'll be occupied by the vehicles. So very dominance of vehicles on the roads instead of streets as a public space in most ordinary towns and cities. With that, next. But amidst that, you can see that for the ordinary towns, because the ordinary towns, there are two types. There are the ordinary towns that are built a new town. There is an ordinary town which is actually, like I said, has some historical past to it. So there are some pockets or spaces, which is very human in terms of scale, and there's a sense of enclosure being there, and it's a space that has been created as a result of very of the needs for the local people, and they're not subject to planning intervention. Next. So it's more of an informal for a space for an ordinary town. Before that, please. Okay. There is also another ordinary town, which is a new town. I mean, like this Rimanjung Perak, because it's a town that is built on greenfield site grid iron, basically, just a arrangement of blocks or buildings with roads to serve it, and they provide open spaces or padang as part of the planning requirement. But what they lack is the aesthetic appeal to the spaces as well as the urban form and the architecture, because most cities in Malaysia are not subject to an urban design guideline or a strong urban design concept to give character to the cities. Next, this is actually something that we at Preka Bandar is very concerned of. And also in the ordinary towns, they have the padang, as well as the not so ordinary towns also have the padang as green lungs, like that traditionally become the center of the town and setting for all civic buildings. Most towns that has been occupied by the British, they will have this padang built. Like I said now, it's part of the way the British built cities in Malaysia. And for today, the padang is being used for various activities, normally for formal occasions, festivals, as well as for sports, formal sports. And in Kuantan, for example, they use the padang during Ramadan to break their fast. It's like a picnic. It's like a picnic before when you during the Ramadan when you break the fast. It's quite an interesting use for a space in that particular town. Next. Oh, it's already becoming a city. Next. So the ordinary and not so ordinary towns have one common problem. I think I mentioned just now, where their streets are replaced by roads, and there's a loss of public space. We are now facing a car-centric environment issue versus human-centric. And this is something that we already now in 2022, but we are still very car-centric in the way we build our cities. Although we have a very comprehensive and structured planning system, but they are just more concerned about the land use planning, and the urban design aspect is, although there are policies on urban design, they're not being implemented or pursued very well at implementation level. Next. So again, a typical, the 5-foot walkways, no, like I said just now, in the past, the 5-foot walkway was an important public space which gives character to the towns, but now they have the 5-foot walkways for the modern shop houses or shop offices, but the design is no longer following the design of the old traditional shop house 5-foot walkway, because it's more of an exposed overhang rather than an enclosed arcaded walkway. So that gives a different character to the place in terms of design. So it's very important that you want to give character urban design. It's not just to provide, but you have to design as such that it gives the character. So the streets, like I said, now because of the priority is for the road for the car. So every space that is available will be given to become a car park. Next. But there are also some cities of the ordinary and not so ordinary which have waterfront. And like I said, in the past, the cities mostly back the river, but now there's a current trend already to give back the river, the waterfront to the public by designing the waterfront as a promenade or for recreation purposes. So that this is a positive trend that is happening now. So we can see more and more of the waterfront being reclaimed back. Next. And in one of the capital city of Kelantan, Kota Baru, I would call it not so ordinary place, because it's a capital city of the state, where the public place, it used to be a padang, a green space for recreation, but now it has been turned into something like a dataran, where they pave up some parts of the place. And this public space is interesting in the sense that it links the waterfront, the riverfront with the jetty to the market. This marketplace, Pasar Khadijah, is one of the most photographed place in Southeast Asia. It's the market. There's nothing to shout out in terms of its architecture and so forth, but the activities and the ambience of the activities is very unique in the sense that people flock to the city to take photographs just because of its market activities. And this marketplace has a link to the public space that bring people to the riverfront, because there's a village on the other side of the river, and there is some kind of link between the river linking the two parts of the river, the settlements. Next. So the not so ordinary towns, can you go back, please? Okay. So one of the most not so ordinary or very unique or different is Putrajaya, because it's a new town. It was built on a greenfield site, not necessarily greenfield site. Yes, in a way, yes, it has already had some water bodies, and that's why Putrajaya has many lakes. And it was built as an administrative city to actually relocate all the government buildings from Kuala Lumpur, the congested Kuala Lumpur, to a town where you can where people can go to this particular city town to have any services related to the government. And then the dominant feature of that, because it's a new town, they had the opportunity to have a master plan being drawn, and they also have a huge budget. When they built Putrajaya, nobody knows what's happening. There's a lot of hoardings around it, and only when the hoarding was torn down, then we can see, oh, we got a town, rising from those green areas. But the main dominant feature is the boulevard. Now, the major criticism of Putrajaya is that it follows the mistake made by administrative cities in the other parts of the world, like Canberra and Brasilia and Chandigarh, in the sense that if you just have one dominant land use in the city and lack a vibrant city center, the city can be very boring in the sense that it doesn't generate activities for the people, except for those who wanted to have some businesses or some important things to do with the offices. And the huge amount of budget actually allow this city to have world-class, facilities and design of their public spaces. But we can question that, is it sustainable just to spend so much on one town which is only serving the purpose of administrative city, not like the other city? So there is something that is a point to ponder. But okay, next. But one thing, so this is what you can see. To me, Putrajaya is a city of highways. They missed the opportunity to build a city that is walkable, a pedestrian city, so that it can become a model for the other cities. But instead, it's a city where there's a lot of highways, there's a lot of huge roads, and you can't survive living here without a car, because all the places are scattered from one another, and the public transportation system is still not good. The model split is about 20/80, I think. Last time I asked them. Well, they are aiming towards become 30/70, but still, the amount of public transportation service is not really good, considering that it's a new town and it is an opportunity to build a model city that other places in Malaysia can follow. The other problem is the strict zoning, in the sense that they just have one area for the administrative building and that they have a different place for their commercial center or the retail center. So this separation of the major component of city, which is the administrative component, and the retail and the commercial center, meant that certain parts of the city will be like a ghost town comes public holidays. Okay, next. So I got a photo to show you as a proof to what I've said. I took this photo during one of the public holidays. I didn't know that it's a public holiday because I have already retired from university. So sometimes I'm not bothered to find out what day is a holiday, because every day to me is a public holiday. So I went to the city center, because actually I live in Putrajaya for the time being. And I said, where are the people? Because this is the main boulevard of the city, and it's empty. I mean, except for one or two in my car, But this is what happened during public holidays and during the weekends. So, and yet they provide world-class facilities for people to walk and to engage in social interaction. But they forgot one thing. People will not walk if there's no reason for people to walk. There will be no people engaging in activities if the building doesn't support the kind of activities that they wanted to do in that particular space. So, beautifying a space without a definite an appropriate function, to me, is just a waste of the resources and is deemed not sustainable as far as design is concerned. Okay, next. How am I against time, Mr. Moderator? Okay, so the public space without people and activities resulted in the city not having sense of it. Even if you go to the city center, this place, on a working day, you will find that most people are indoors because they go there to the office. Yeah, because it's a government administrative city, so all activities happens indoor. But yet they provide lots of facilities and lots of landscaping for outdoors. So there's a mismatch in terms of activities and the space provided. Next. And that this is the city, their retail center, one of their retail center. There's another one is a shopping mall because it's under one roof. And even their retail center, they cannot provide enough public parking spaces that, it's so difficult to find parking space and it's not really that accessible if you try to walk because of the huge number of cars with not enough parking spaces provided for you to go to the shops. But still, the facilities they provided is not so ordinary if you compare to other cities in Malaysia. Okay, 2 minutes left. Thank you, Moderator. Okay, next. The other not so ordinary city, which is our capital city of Kuala Lumpur. But one thing that Kuala Lumpur has is a huge padang at the center. One thing that I regret is that because of the low priority in terms of design of urban spaces, we don't see this padang as being one of the jewel of the crown of Kuala Lumpur, or the space, the green lungs of the city. So parts of the character of the space has been transformed into a dataran, like I said just now. So some of the turf area has now been paved up, and then they built a structure to put the flag. And another aspect is that the padang has been separated from the Moorish architecture, one of the most interesting architecture in that space. The bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad is separated by about 4, 5 lanes of 6 lanes, 4 lanes road. It's road because it is allowed for the movement of cars to pass through. So in a way, apart from breaking the space, it's also showing that the shrinking of the space, and it doesn't give opportunity for people to really appreciate the space because of the very busy and chaotic condition of the cars moving, passing through the padang in front of bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad. So in a way, like I said, to design an urban spaces, a lot of things has to be considered. You have to actually strike a balance into wanting to protect the space or to allow movement of traffic. But if you are so car oriented, then probably you have to sacrifice the space for the cars. Next. I have to go fast now. Again, we got one of the central market, the building has been conserved, but the space in front, traditionally the market will have a square or a space in front for spillover activities. But what happening is here in this situation is that particular space has been used for car parking. So you lose a space that will give a setting to the very historical building, and another space was created for the spillover, which is at the lane at the side of the building, but that is a different kind of character. So again, loss of a human-centric public space to car-centric public space. Next. Another issue is the River of Life project in Kuala Lumpur, where we're supposed to transform the waterfront of Kuala Lumpur into a very vibrant public space. That's why it's called River of Life. But some people now make a joke of it. It's a river of death because there's no life to it. The river are still polluted. It still looks like a monsoon drain. And during the last year, it was one of the contributing factor of the flooding last year. So the issue of finding the most sustainable use for public space is still there, even though there's a lot of shouting these SDGs slogans being thrown into the plans, but in reality, how they build the public spaces is still more of beautification rather than regeneration and injecting life to the public spaces. Next. And they also also do lots of, I would say most of the attempts to revitalize the public spaces in Kuala Lumpur historical district are more towards beautification rather than regeneration. There is a problem to this. If you beautify the space like what they have done in Medan Pasar here, but you forgot about the buildings that is surrounding that space, and those buildings surrounding the space are actually empty. A lot of graffiti on the walls. There's no activities going on. So in the end, all the beautiful square you created in that space were occupied by vagrants, by the homeless people, by the foreign workers, and then to a certain extent that the local peoples are so scared to go to this space because you can see lots of undesirable activities happening. So when talk about design urban spaces, it's not just about beautifying, but you have to find a function. And it's not just the space that is of concern. The activities surrounding the space must be considered because that is the one that generates activities for life to that space. Next. So these again examples of how some of the roads has been transformed into streets to accommodate for the pedestrians in Kuala Lumpur. Next. One thing again, like I said, the common trend, the loss of the walkways. You can see the difference between the modern walkways. They are not enclosed. They're not enclosed and sheltered from the weather. They're just an exposed overhang. Next. And also, you can see that some of the spaces, historical public space like the Dutch Square in Malacca, has been subjected to lots of landscaping or beautification that is, to me, like gimmicks more to attract tourists rather than try to give the character to a historical space. In fact, the original the color of the building is white, for all the other buildings except for the Christchurch, but they paint this whole part of the city red, which in a way, make a mockery of the authenticity of the original buildings. Next. Some attempts at reclaiming the waterfront, the riverfront in Malacca is applauded because now it's transforming the riverfront to an active public space. But I think the painting of the murals, along the riverfront is a bit overboard because you have to look. If the buildings are very ugly in terms of its facade, then you can paint it a mural so that you can but if the building has a character, there's interesting facade, there's a richness in the ornamentation, don't disturb them. Don't tamper with the authenticity of the facade design through the murals. Next. Okay, the challenges of designing sustainable public spaces in Malaysia is firstly to find appropriate use for the public space that can sustain it into the future. So many attempts of designing that fail because of the mismatch between the design of the space and the users surrounding it. And we have to minimize beautification attempts and instead embark on regeneration program to turn spaces from the past into functional use as behavioral setting. So we have to think of the function first before you figure out the beautification. And then town and city centers must be designed to have a hierarchy of public space that can give character to urban form, as well as serve a purpose. This is our problem. The public spaces are not designed as an ensemble. There's a clear hierarchy that what spaces will happen in which part of the town center, because it's just like just filling in the blanks. There's a void in the city, then you just do some landscaping and becomes a public space. One of the major problems is that urban design is not given important consideration in the process of translating policies to actions that have implications on the urban environment on the ground. We have very good planning policies, but we fail at implementing it because we do not see urban design as playing that role. And urban design framework should be prepared to translate the policies. This has been done in the cities in UK. That's why they have beautiful public spaces, because they have an urban design master plan that can actually translate the policies. But here in Malaysia, we just have the planning policies, and then we have a policy in the local plan, and then it's up to the individual landowners to do what they like with their sites. And public spaces that are functional up and part of tactical urbanism should be used, especially for flood mitigation measures. Now, I think in the Klang Valley where Kuala Lumpur is situated, we have to go for a water-sensitive urban design approach, and we have to design the urban spaces as urban sinks or part of a sponge city concept, so that the spaces will help to mitigate the floods, so that the city can be resilient and sustainable in the future. And finally, at Preka Bandar is now we are trying to lobby, trying to get the government to prepare an urban design compendium to translate the national urban design policy, because at the moment the policy are very spatial oriented and more two-dimensional in nature, but there is no measures or no sense of direction as far as design is concerned for all the cities in Malaysia, so that with the compendium, it can become a basis for urban design guidelines to be produced, urban design frameworks, and other urban design master plan that can provide quality to the design of cities beyond the planning policies. Okay, I finally come to the end. Sorry if I take the time. I would like to thank Dr. Rohaya Cik Ahmad from UTMK for really assisting me in preparing the slides, and also my son, Muhammad Al-Mustafa, for helping the final formatting of the slides. Thank you very much. Sorry if I encroach into the time.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Prof. Shuhana. I think it's an impressive lecture today, but it's really interesting about how you see the ordinary town and not ordinary town, about in Teluk Intan, Seri Manjung, Kota Baru, and Kuala Lumpur. But I have some question, but I will keep it another session. But I will continue to the next lecture from our host lecture, who Dr. Retno Widjajanti. Are you ready? Okay.
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, thank you. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Pak Grandy.
Slide satu dulu.
Garis apa?
Nah, begini biar ke halaman satu.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the time. Today, I would like to introduce myself. I am Retno Widjajanti from Urban and Regional Planning Department of Engineering Faculty, Diponegoro University. Today, I will give explanation about space for street vendor activities in urban area in Semarang City. Until now, street vendor still majoring topic for space problem discussion in urban areas in Indonesia. There are some informal sector categories such as trading, transportation, industries, and services. The trading as one of the informal sectors are street vendors that take a role to supply public goods. On the other hand, they are always considered as space problem in urban areas because they are located in roadside, sidewalk, parks, square that can also create public space problem. When they are located on the roadside, they create ordinliness and traffic jams. While they are located on sidewalk, they occupy the whole space so that they disturb safety and comfort others who get through it. The street vendors in park and square also occupy space that disturb others who want to spend activities there as a public space. It means there are utilized space conflict that create problem, and the problem that happens shows that street vendors need to be placed in urban space. The characteristic of street vendors who grow and develop around city functional area are tending to coming closer or cutting or heading consumer path when they head to city functional activities. This condition creates a meeting point or cutting path location of customer with the street vendors, so that there are always utilized space conflict around those meeting area. Moreover, it is necessary to know the position of the meeting point or cutting path location between consumer and the street vendor. Location map of the study. There are 3 points of the study location that has been done, and there are Pecinan District located in Semarang Tengah, Simpang 5 as CBD of Semarang City, and the educational area of Tembalang is located southern part of Semarang. Location preference for street vendor activity in Tembalang area. Based on the street vendor perception, it could be found that they choose trading location as follows. In Prof. Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, and Banjarsari Street as a main street from Semarang downtown into Tembalang education area or vice versa. As consumer path into Tembalang education areas or from Tembalang area to the other part of Semarang city. As consumer part of people from the place where they live to workplaces in Tembalang areas or outside Tembalang area, to school or to Diponegoro University or to 4 other university in Tembalang areas or outside Tembalang areas, to shopping places in Tembalang areas or outside Tembalang areas, to park as recreation or sport places in Tembalang areas or outside Tembalang area, to health service places and Undip hospital, worship places like mosque or church or outside. So that on the 3 street path, there are high people mobilities around the areas. The space condition around the area, the main circulation path street, turn into the area which are used by street vendors to do their trading activities that are lining up on the roadside on the main circulation path. In this slide, in the Jatimulyo Street, is a main space for a kindergarten school and elementary school and residence or university student activities. That is why there is a high frequency of people passing by the street every day, and there is high mobility of people. This condition in the main circulation path are chosen by street vendor to be used as a location for their trading activity. In the Tirta Agung Street is a space for education activities called Health Polytech Health Polytech of Semarang and residence activities. The street function as a connection space between those two activities, causing high passing by people. These conditions are considered by the street vendor as an opportunity for their trading location, since there are big numbers of consumers. Then they use the space along the circulation path for their trading place. The space that is as a public, the space that is as a people movement that from one activity to the other activities can be categorized as a space for the street vendor to come closer or to cut people movement to the main activities. That is why it is chosen by them for their trading activity. The main activity space, the main activity around Tembalang area is education. Due to the main activity mentioned before, it creates internal activity linkage in the area, such as residence activities, trading and services, office, which cause a variety of activity that stimulate people to come to the area and to do activities as well. This condition can be categorized a high accumulation of people around the area. The street vendor catch this condition and use them for their trading activity. That is why they choose the Tembalang area as their business activity. There are several kinds of activity around Prof. Sudarto Street, like education activity, residence activity, trading activities, office, and also there are various activities. It attracts consumers to come to the area that triggers street vendor to make use the condition by choosing the area as the location of their trading place, and by utilizing the area around those various activities. Moreover, the street vendor also use public space such as sidewalk and roadside around the academic activity, resident activity, trading activities, office for their trading place. The path of Sirojudin. The path of Sirojudin Street and Banjarsari Street are a space between the academic activities and residence activities. Around these areas, there are residence activities and trading activities, but mostly they are dominated by resident activity. This resident activity around the area caused by street vendor for their trading area, and they also make use of space around the residents' activity. Moreover, they also utilize public space as a sidewalk or roadside for their trading activities. The Tirto Agung Street. The Tirto Agung Street is a space between the Health Polytech of Semarang and resident activities which function as a connection space between those two activities that cause high passing by people around it. These conditions are considered as an opportunity for street vendors to do tradings since there are consumers around it, and they utilize space for doing the trading along the circulation path. The space that functions as a movement path for passing by people from one activity to other activities can be categorized as a space for street vendor to come closer or to cut people movement to main activities. That is why these spaces are chosen by them for doing their business. The activities times. The activities around the Tembalang education area happens for 24 hours a day, which follow people activities that are dominated by university student activities that last for 24 hours. This condition gives street vendor an opportunity to get consumer so that they prefer to be in Tembalang education area for their trading activity, like Prof Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, and Tirto Agung Street, or in general, they follow the time of the main activity around the area. The characteristic space. Based on the street vendor perception, it is found that the vendors choose the trading location in Prof Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, and Tirto Agung Street because they can use space permanently. That means that they can use the space and the same area for the whole day activities around the Tembalang education area. Place preference for street vendor activities in Tembalang area. Based on the street vendor perception, it is found that sidewalk and roadside in Prof Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, and Tirto Agung Street are considered as follow. There are enough space for them to do their trading, like placing and arranging the trading utility, for example, a wheelbarrow or a wheelbarrow with a tent in it. Easily ways to arrange, to display, to prepare, to present their commodities. Freely move their body to serve the consumer. arrange seats or chair or mats for consumer. It's safe from the dangerous traffic of vehicles. Based on the street vendor perceptions, they make their preference to make use of public spaces like sidewalk or roadside along Prof. Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, and Tirto Agung Street for doing the business. The street vendor around Tembalang area in the public space like sidewalk or roadside along Prof. Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, and Tirto Agung Street are dominated by food and beverage trading by using the wheelbarrow trading utility. Based on the street vendor perception, it is found that space among the street vendors area separated by tools or fabric. The separation between the street vendor is not a permanent material, so that it can provide a comfortable feeling for them since they can have good or beneficial partnership, such as selling food and beverage, sharing to each other street vendor the raw material for their food material for cooking when one day they run out of the material. Based on the street vendor perception located in public space, which are Prof. Sudarto Street, Sirojudin Street, Banjarsari Street, Jatimulyo Street, and Tirto Agung Street, it is found that they choose their trading place in sidewalk or roadside for some reasons, and the reasons are as follows. Can be seen easily by consumer without blocking by other activity or other buildings. Can be accessed easily by consumer from the side of the road or from their vehicles. Safe place for doing their trading because the space are allowed by neighborhood association or rukun tetangga, or the local government or the owner of the building. Shady place and bright place. Location preference of street vendor activity in pecinan areas. Now I will talk about location preference of street vendor activity in pecinan area. The activity in pecinan area can be considered as a 24-hour activities. The phenomenon happens follow the shifting activity routine of the market, shop, and warehouse and consumer activity in each area. And the color, red color, there are location of the street vendor in pecinan area. Like this, in Wat Gandul Street, at Gang Pinggir, at Gang Warung, and at Gang Beteng, and at Gang Baru. The location street vendor is also located on the main road of Pecinan area that connected to the other place. The high mobility of the main road also becomes the reason for street vendor activity. The main activity of trade and service attract people to do activity in this area, creating a high accumulation of consumer. The characteristic of the street vendor is permanent. Place preference of street vendors activity in Pecinan area. To continue, I will talk about place preference of street vendors activity in Pecinan area. Street vendor choose to do trading activity on the sidewalk and on the roadside because they think there are enough space for trading activity. Basically, street vendors do the trading as a job for supporting their life. Location preference for street vendors activities in Simpang Lima area. At the moment, I will explain the location preference for street vendor activity in Simpang Lima. As we can see from my slide, it gives us detailed activity about Simpang Lima. The Simpang Lima area is the main CBD of Semarang City. Therefore, this area has high community mobility and is surrounded by the main activity of trade and services, activity, office building, and accommodation activity. This condition stimulates consumer to come to the area and create a high accumulation of consumer for street vendor. And the location of street vendor is in front of Telkom office, in front of A Plaza, in front of Baitur Rahman Mosque and Citraland Hotel is street vendor free area. And in street vendor located in front of Plaza Simpang Lima Mall, in front of the site of Plus, in front of Super Economy, and in front of the Ibis style hotel and Ramayana department store. Betul. Next, I will explain the place preference for street vendor activity in Simpang Lima area. The street vendor choose to do trading activity on the sidewalk or shelter because they think there are enough space for trading activities. Basically, street vendors do their trading as a job for supporting their life. Street vendor in Simpang Lima area dominated by food and beverage using shelter. Based on the street vendor perception, found that the space between street vendor activity is a barrier of kitchen furniture for maximizing limited spaces. The unpermanent barrier of each street vendor give comfort because they can collaborate with each other to fulfill their needs. They can easily interact with each other, can be seen easily by consumer without being blocked by other activities or other buildings, can be accessed easily by consumer from the side of the road or from their vehicles. Safe place for doing their trading because the space is allowed by the city council. Shady and bright place. The following is about similarities and difference of location and places of street vendor activities among Tembalang, Pecinan, and Simpang Lima. I am going to start from the similarities. Location. 1. Based on the main activity area that attract consumer to come closer the areas. 2. Located around the main road of the area. 3. Placed on high community mobility space. Next is about trading place. 1. Sidewalk and roadside in Tembalang, sidewalk and roadside in Pecinan, sidewalk in Simpang Lima. 2. Enough space for trading activities. 3. Easily catch and easy to be accessed by consumer from the roadside or from vehicle. 4. Bright and shady place. 5. Permitted place. Let's get to the difference. Number 1. Main activity on the area. Tembalang. Main activity areas are education and create internal activity linkage that main activity are residence, trade, and services. Pecinan. Main activities are residence, trade, and service. Simpang Lima. Various kind of main activity areas are located in CBD of Semarang. 2. Circulation or road. Tembalang, main road of education area of Tembalang. Pecinan, main road that connect Pecinan area to other area. Simpang Lima, nodes of main road of Semarang city. 3. Activity time. Tembalang. Time activity in the area is 24-hour following the college student activities. Pecinan. Time activity in the area is 24 hours. That shifting between traditional market, trading activity, warehouse activity, and consumer activity. Simpang Lima. Time activity in the area is 24 hours. 4. Space for trading. Tembalang. The space between two street vendors is barrier of tool or a fabric. Pecinan. No barriers in the space between street vendors. Simpang Lima. The space between street vendors are barriered by kitchen furniture. The characteristic of the difference area in the Tembalang, Simpang 5 CBD, and Pecinan are the main factor causing the difference in aspect of the location and place of street vendor activities. Conclusion. The conclusion of location and place preference of street vendor activity in Tembalang area, Simpang 5, Pecinan area is stated as follows. The street vendor which are located in a city space and are integrated to activities around the functional area are choose the main road of the area for trading, choose to be closer to variety of activities, choose a location that can be used by following the rhythm or the time of consumer activities, come closer to potential consumer, come closer to passing through consumer or consumer circulation, have open space characteristics that are not covered by other building or other activities, easily viewed by consumer. The varieties of street of activities mean that there are varieties of consumer potential, and there are also a big number of them. As we can see it around Simpang 5, it's around Semarang city. There are Tembalang area, Simpang 5, and Pecinan or Chinatown in Semarang which have those characteristics. The location are suitable to the street vendor activities by choosing the space that are as follows. Located in the main road of the area, that are located in variety activities around the area. Choose to be closer to a variety of activities around the public space like sidewalk or roadside. Choose the location of site that can be used by following time of area activities. Choose to be closer to big number of passing through consumer and consumer circulation. Come closer to consumer circulation flow. Have space that can be used permanently. Comfortable place for street vendor doing their trading activity by choosing the space that are as follows. Place on the public space like sidewalk, roadside, park, square. Suitable for their activity and space needed to do their activities. Can be used to arrange their trade facility without permanent barrier with other street vendors. Can be used by following the time of area activities. The shady and the bright space. Safe place that allowed by the local government. Can be seen by consumer without blocking by other activity or buildings. Can be easily accessed by consumer using their vehicle or by public transportation. We should be aware toward location that are considered as suitable and comfortable place which act as potential location for street vendor to do the business in urban space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Bu Dr. Retno Widjajanti. I will continue to the next agenda, to the open discussions. We have 20 minutes or around 25 minutes to these sessions. And I will mention for all participants in the theater room and also our participant in the virtual room, please, you can mention your questions. You can just mention your name and your institution, and don't forget to mention to whom you want to ask your questions. Okay. And for the participant in the virtual room, you can just use the feature raise hand. Yeah, you just raise your hand, and then we will call you if you already if you want to direct send your message to the speakers or our host lecture and invited lecturers. Okay, I will wait. Anyone? Okay, and we have one in our theater room, please.
Morning, Professor, and morning, everyone. I'm an undergraduate student from Urban Regional Planning, and I'd like to ask about urban public space. So you mentioned earlier that one of the category of urban space is defined by how the user engage with the space, which I found it quite interesting when I first heard about negative spaces. So when the urban space is not functioning as we urban designer intended it to be, then it will become the negative spaces. And my question is that, how can we prevent the formation of these negative spaces? And what if the negative spaces have already formed? How can we respond to the formation of the negative spaces? Thank you.
Okay, to whom you want to ask these questions? You want to ask this question to Prof. Shuhana or
To the
both of them?
first lecture.
Or the first lecture of
Yes.
okay. To Prof. Shuhana? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see the speaker, the person who asked the question. If I get it right, you want me to explain why negative spaces have been created, even though that was not intention, and how to prevent it. Okay, what is meant by negative spaces is that when space there's a mismatch between the design of the space for what it is being intended and the actual activities or the lack of activities that is happening in the particular space, contrary to what is actually being designed for. Now, one of the contributing factor to happening to this is the lack of studies to be done before you actually design a space. That is why I think designing a public space is not just a matter of filling up the blank. I mean, if you look at space as a void in the city, it's not just about filling in the space with street furnitures or plantings or paving up or just doing murals. It's about designing a setting for a certain behavior to occur. So in doing so, one of the most important steps to be done before you engage in designing a public space is to actually do a behavioral observation in that area. Because without a clear understanding of the activities that is already occurring, or the lack of activities or the lack of activities occurring in that space, you probably be actually adding more undesirable space to the city by doing so. So behavioral observation is an important tool that we urban designers should do. At the same time, is to actually do a public survey of the user, who are in the area, And there are two types of users. There are the people who comes and visit the place, and those who actually use the space, who actually stay there or work in the space. So you can see the difference of the needs of the people who actually use the space as a worker, or somebody who work, or somebody who live there, as compared to somebody who just come to the place and visit it for just a short time, because they probably have two different needs. So it's not easy. It's not just a matter of doing a space, introducing some kind of activities, hoping that somebody will be somebody's needs will be met. But you actually have to target. You have to identify who are the target. Who are the person who's going to use the space, and what are the spaces going to be used? I give you some example just now of many spaces that has been gone through some kind of to me it looks more like a beautification, because the attention is more just on to do street enhancement, through landscaping and so forth. But the activities remain the same. So it may be that by doing some the beautification, and without changing the activities, probably the space cannot improve in terms of its function and its use. So that is why we need urban designers. We need people to do urban, because it's not just a matter of planning. For planning, you can say, okay, you can identify this as a public square or public space. That is planning. You identify the location. But how do you decide on the design to make sure that that particular space can be the most appropriate use to become the setting for the most appropriate activities there? Because the classic example, like I showed just now in KL, they have already do a lot of beautifying the Medan Pasar, which is one of the most historical spots in Kuala Lumpur, but they forgot to actually regenerate the building surrounding the square, to find some users that can have spillover activities to make sure the space will be utilized. Because if you only have activities that doesn't spill over into the space, then it will be it's done indoor, then the space will be redundant. Okay, so that's why it's not a behavioral observation. It's more important to talk to those who live and use the space, to get actually, and also to actually understand the historical significance of the space, what the space has been used in the past, because if you want to actually design for the future, you must know what has been in the past, and how you can activate the space so that the space will be relevant to the future. So to me, most of the time, the emphasis on just looking at physical design without understanding the purpose and activities has led to some of the spaces, once it has been completed in terms of design, it doesn't serve the function it originally intended to.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Shuhana, for your answer. For the next agenda, I would like to hold two questions first. Okay, two questions from the theater room. Could you raise your hand? Don't forget to mention your name and your institution and the question for who. Okay, quick.
Okay, thank you for this kind chance. My name is Margareta from Diponegoro University. I want to ask Professor Shuhana a question. First of all, thank you so much for a very insightful information from both lecturers. In previous slide, Professor Shuhana also talked about traditional market in Malaysia as a public space. As we know, Indonesia and Malaysia is geographically close to each other, that also indicate a same characteristic. So what I'm about to ask you is, how can urban design help traditional market as a public space to be competitive with modern market and also sustainable in the same time? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One questions, Ken? Anyone? in this virtual room or in this theater room? Okay. Okay, we have one in the theater room. You can stand. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for the chance. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Elisa Rahma Putri from Diponegoro University. In here, I want to ask, in our studio, in our study area in Jatipuro, the open space in Jatipuro was not give significant effect to the society, to the people there, in terms of to recreation area. So my question is how to make open space itself encourage people to interact each other in there. I think that's all for me, sir. Thank you.
Okay, your question is for both of our speaker or just one?
Yes, for both,
Or both of them. Okay. Thank you very much. I will give the chance first for the Prof. Shuhana. You can answer the first questions. Sorry, the second questions from Margareta.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I respond to
Okay.
the first question before I forgot about it?
Oh, okay.
The first question was about the traditional market, the traditional market space and place and space. That's a very good question, and it comes from an undergraduate, isn't it? Or postgraduate student?
Yeah.
Okay, you've asked a very good question to me, because when we talk about urban design, one of the, if you really want to know the culture of the society, the first, if you go to visit cities or all over the world places, if you want to know the real culture of the people and the real you really want to understand, the values of the society, you go to the marketplace, not the supermarket, the traditional market. Because the traditional market actually is the symbol of the life of the local people. And the activities that they engage are actually activities that are so close to the local practices and the things that they sell, the way they apply their trades, is very much reflecting the way of life of the locals, as compared to the supermarket or the modern market, or the now you can have a wet market in a building, in a supermarket, because there's a lot of it's now a current trend to have a wet market inside a shopping mall. But the way they operate is not the way it's been practiced in the traditional marketplace. So that is the major difference. So I would say in the traditional marketplace, you can see the real life of the people, the real culture, because it's happening in a very informal setting. Now, in Malaysia, we in the past they used to just have like a simple shelter for the market activities, and many of the activities were spread outdoors. So having an open public space in front, fronting the marketplace will allow the spillover, and this is the one that attracts the people. But the unique thing about one of the slides that I show about Pasar Khadijah, Siti Khadijah in Kelantan, which I mentioned, one of the most photographed places in Asia, is the uniqueness of the way they engage the market activities, although it's located inside the building, because the building is just like it's a building with an atrium and triple volume, something like that. So it's just an open space where they will put all their things that they sell on something like on a table, but very very low rise tables, and they will sit on it with all the goods that they are selling, and most of the activities were done by women. and that will make it unique. Especially when all the things that they sell are actually local foods. You know, something that is related to the local. As compared to you, if you go to the supermarket, what you can see is actually predictable from one place to another. So the unique thing about traditional marketplace is they have strong identity and character. But the policy that we have in Malaysia, in a way, is killing this kind of places, because especially in KL, where they don't allow wet market to operate inside the city centre because of the traffic congestion that is associated with market activities. So most market, the marketplace has been relocated in the fringe, at the urban fringe, so that, you know, they don't bring in market. But by doing so, you will lose one of the major nodes, because markets are a best example of a node, which is related to the Lynch theory about how a city is being imaged by the people. So it's in a way to solve the traffic problem. That's why I say, because we are so preoccupied with traffic, we're so occupied to making the cars, you know, move faster. So we sacrifice, you know, taking out the major node from the city center, taking out one of the places that gives character and sense of place to the city. But if you look at the trend in Europe, they still retain the traditional marketplace. A good example is in La Ramblas in Barcelona, which is one of the most famous pedestrian street that link the waterfront of Barcelona to the city center. One part of the city is actually a wet market, still operating like what it used to be in the past. And yet they solve the traffic congestion problem by having a time zone. That means allowing loading and unloading of goods during certain time of the day when the people are not around, and then allowing the marketplace to take place in a more organized manner, yet retaining its character. So sometimes, you know, the planning policies of like in terms of land use can kill the places that gives character to place, like the traditional market. So what we should be doing, like I said, in terms of design, you have to design market with a public space, because the very nature of marketplaces is trading. And trading operating in a tropical climate is not the same as operating in a temperate climate, because it's okay for us to sit outdoor, you know. So the spillover will add colors and gives a sense of vibrance to the city so I would say that we should allow more traditional market activities to be inside in the city center, but with a much better design in terms of the facilities and infrastructures, as well as traffic management, to control the amount of traffic that comes in and out of the place. But you should not design the traditional marketplace in a building like a supermarket, because that would change the character. So it's like if we continue to design more and more wet markets inside the building like supermarkets, then we will be so in a way, you know, losing one of the major public space in many of the cities in this part of the region. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof, for your answers. It's a quite interesting topic and questions that you just answered. I think we have one question left. I will give the opportunity to I don't know, Prof. Shuhana, do you want to continue first, or I will give?
I think maybe give Dr. Retno.
Yeah, because the third question is to a local case. Yeah, it's really local case. So I will give the opportunity to Bu Retno Widjajanti to answer the questions, please.
Okay. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pak Grandy. I will answer the question of the student. To make a public space attract people to come, the public space have to be designed in attractive way, such as shady and bright place, giving free Wi-Fi, the area clean and safe, complete facility for sport, playground, and etc., street furniture, and aesthetic design landscape. That's my answer, Pak Grandy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Dr. Retno Widjajanti. I will move to the last questions from Damian in the chat box. I will try to read the mention for Prof. Shuhana. As a foreigner living in Indonesia, I find that there are effectively no accessible public space available that could meet the criteria of being safe, comfortable, and pleasurable, and etc. Based on your experience in Malaysia, what lesson could Semarang learn to improve the public space? Thank you.
Okay, I think we have similar problem.
Juga tanya kalau di Malaysia gimana?
Especially in the not so ordinary towns, like especially in the ordinary towns, where there are not much control. Because our problem when it comes to public spaces is not so much. Yeah, one aspect is about design. I mean, like I mentioned, we're good at planning. We're good at not say so good, but at least it's very, very structured. They have a documentation to support the planning policies and so forth. But we don't design, there's no when there's a space being provided, the design is not done as part of a wider consideration of how the space is going to be related to other spaces, but it's more like design in isolation to others. So then the issue rise is about accessibility, and also walkability. Because when you have a space, people don't drive through a space. That's not the whole idea of having a public space. Usually, public space is associated with walkability. You have to enjoy the space. You have to walk, but if the city is designed in a car-centric manner, it's more the priority given more to the cars rather than pedestrians, then no matter how well designed your public space, it's not accessible because it's difficult to access by foot. So I think in order to, the lessons learned is that when we want to design public spaces, you have to look it as in a holistic manner, in the sense that I mentioned just now that there should be a clear hierarchy of the public spaces as a whole for the town, and then there must be a clear a master plan being prepared to actually decide what are the spaces are going to be used and how are they going to be connected to one another. Ideally, all the public spaces should be accessible and connected. You can actually walk from one space to another. That would be the best. That's the ideal situation. And that's what it's been done in Copenhagen. The whole major part of the city center has been transformed into pedestrian street, so that they can enjoy all the spaces. All spaces are connected. In Malaysia, we don't have that situation as well. I mean, so the issue of safety, the issue of comfort and accessibility arises because of that, because there is no clear structure in the way you design the public spaces. So that's why we at Prekavana, we are trying to lobby to the local authorities to design the spaces. You cannot just plan and identify the location for the public spaces. It has to be designed as an entity, as one composition, so that you can clearly feel the hierarchy of the spaces, and that all the spaces are actually functional and serve the purpose. So not much to learn from us, Sorry, who's asking this now? we are more or less having the same problem as you. I think unless you go into urban design, then you will solve this problem of designing urban spaces. Because if the local authorities have some kind of urban design framework for the whole city, how they want to see the city being designed into the future, then an urban design master plan for all the public spaces. I mean, you can have an urban design master plan for the public spaces, which would actually look into where are the areas there we can have the public space being created, and what is the hierarchy, which space will become the major and which one will be the supporting and so forth. And you design the linkages so that all these spaces are connected. Until you do that, then you cannot resolve this issue of accessibility, comfort, and safety, because they are all done in an ad hoc manner. I don't know whether you answer the question, but accessibility is an issue here in Malaysia because the spaces are not actually really providing for those who are having mobility issues.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Shuhana, for your answer. Unfortunately, our discussion time is up. So I will continue to the next agenda. I move to the next agenda. I will try to take some notes for these sessions. Just a simple notes from me about how the lecture see the public space contribution to the urban design. And public space in Malaysia and Indonesia, yeah, for this lecture today is increasingly being used to promote the environmental awareness and conservations. And but we don't forget to be a public spacing out. It's not just about to develop the physical things, but also to find the balance about the social activity in the public space. So the key point is about how to find the balance from the, I don't know, the 4 value things that just Prof. Shuhana shared in their slide about qualities, economic, environment, and so on. And I think that's my simple notes about this lecture today. Thank you. And I will move to the next agenda. Some closing remarks from our chairman, Prof. Iwan Rudiarto. I will give this opportunity to you to give some closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Grandy. Thank you very much for your nice moderator today. So, good morning, and I think it's better to say good. What do you call it? Selamat siang, yeah. Good day, something, yeah. In German, we call it Guten Tag, yeah. So I would like to thank you very much to Professor Shuhana and also Dr. Retno Widjajanti for your nice lecture today. I hope that our student will get some insights and also more knowledge on urban design, more particularly on sustainable design, yeah. And I had some point that from the lecture of Professor Shuhana, I found that you will find also some different terms between the ordinary and so ordinary cities, yeah.
Not
so,
ordinary cities.
Not so ordinary, yeah. Not so, yeah. I was very curious that time, and then I was looking for your presentation, and I did find that the not so ordinary that real actually this is the regular formal city created by the government, as for instance, like in Putrajaya, yeah, they have the administrative city as the capital city, and they have also different kind of from the colonial historic heritage, something like that, yeah. That was about not so ordinary city. And there was the interesting lecture also from Bu Retno, yeah. You may learn, maybe you have learned about street vendor previously or even in your studio, but at least Bu Retno can compare between the, I think the a little bit established street vendor in Simpang Lima, and on the other hand, you have kind of like something like not really regular in where you find it in Tembalang, yeah, close to the in Pecinanas, but Pecinan is quite good, I think, yeah. And in Tembalang is quite new actually. So I hope what you have learned today will enrich your knowledge on urban design, urban space, and everything related to this topic today. And therefore, as the chairman of this international lecture series, I would like to say a great thank you for our great speakers today, to Prof. Shuhana from UTM, and also to Dr. Retno Widjajanti from Undip. And we hope that our collaboration that has been established, I think it was about since 2019 something, it's been 3 years, we can move forward to something more in, what do you call it, more fruitful in the future. Thank you very much again. And also thank you very much for your student here in this room and also in the online platform through Zoom. Yeah, we would like to thank you very much for today. So that close this wonderful discussion today by having words Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Prof. Iwan, for your closing remarks. Okay, before I close this session or our event, I want to also say thank you to our honorable host lecturer and Bu Retno Widjajanti and our guest lecturer, Prof. Shuhana Shamsuddin. Thank you for your sharing experience. It's very interesting topic that you are share today. And thanks also for our participant from in theater room and also in the virtual room, and our participant came from the Malaysia. I want to say thank you again to you for joining our lecture series today. And before we close our session, I want to give opportunity to Intan to get some documentations. So prepare yourself, open your camera, and Intan will guide to the documentation. Please, Intan.
Okay, thank you, Pak Grandy, for your. Okay, for all online participants, we can take the photo together. You can turn on your camera, and I will screenshot from the Zoom. And maybe for the participant in theater room, maybe you can take photo together after the online. Yes, after I take photo from the online site. I'm still waiting for, there are 3 pages. Okay. Is there anyone to open the camera? Okay, I think
just one page is the
okay.
camera.
1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, Pak Grandy, Bu Retno, and Prof. Shuhana.
Thank you so much, Intan.
And all
Can we give applause
participants.
to our session today?
Thank you very much.
Okay, to close this international lectures, I will say thank you again for our organizer, Bu Santi, Bu Landung, to arrange this event. And last word, see you in the next international lecture series. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pak
Bye-bye,
Grandy.
see you. Thank you
Thank you,
all.
Prof. Shuhana.
Thank you. Bye.